A School Map by Readworks. Ava's brother Jarrell was going to go to her school. Ava had an idea. She got a piece of paper and crayons. She drew a box at the top of the paper. Next to it, she wrote Ava's classroom. She drew a box at the bottom of the paper and wrote Jarrell's classroom. She drew 2 more boxes in between. On the first one, she wrote the office. On the second one, she wrote the gym. Next, Ava drew a blue dot. She wrote water fountain next to the dot. Ava showed the page to her brother. It was a map of the school. Jarrell was happy. Now he knew where he was going. He could even find the water fountain.
Okay, guys, this is lesson 1.1, so it can go with your 1.1 math worksheet.
Two, 4, 6, 8. Who do we appreciate? Today we're going to take odd numbers and add them to even numbers, or even numbers and add them to odd numbers. And we're going to find out what happens when we do that. Let's get started. Take a look at our addition chart. I want to emphasize a particular diagonal here. It's a diagonal that starts with this number 1 and then goes down. You see 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, 17, and 19. Okay, so recall that each of these numbers represent the sum. Those are the sum from adding 2 addends. For example, that number 5 comes from adding the addend 3 with the addend of 2. 3 plus 2 is 5. Great. So what I'm going to do is complete all of these addition sentences right here. So what we have is 3 plus 2 equals the 5. And let's go ahead and figure out how each of these other sums were found. Okay? And I'm just going to erase these bars here, and we'll do it just with our fingers, okay? So how do we get the 1 in this diagonal? We add 1 and 0. And then how do we get the 3? That's 2 plus 1. How do we get the 7? That's 4 plus 3. The 9 comes from the addend 5 plus the addend 4. 11 comes from 6 plus 5. 13 comes from 7 plus 6. Almost there. 15 is 8 plus 7. And 17 comes from 9 plus 8. And 19 comes from 10 plus 9. Okay, now what I want you to observe about each of these sums is that every single one of them has an even addend and an odd addend. Let's review. Remember, even numbers are numbers that end in the values 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8. Odd numbers are numbers that end in 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. So, going back, you see let's go ahead and start with the 3 plus 2. Do you see that 3 is odd and 2 is even? So we have an odd number plus an even number, and look at our result. It's odd. Okay, let's keep going. 4 is even, 3 is odd, and our result is odd. 5 is odd, 4 is even, the result is odd. Okay, so let me help you understand what's happening here. Every single one of these sums is an odd result. We got odd. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Aren't these all odd numbers? Yeah. And as it turns out, anytime you add an odd number with an even number, or an even number with an odd number, right? It doesn't matter which order you add them. The result will always be odd. And this is just a demonstration of that. So, now we know when we add an odd number with an even number or an even number with an odd number, we're going to get an odd result.
And this is lesson 1.2 in math.
You know, I think rounding is so much fun, and I want us to actually think about rounding to the nearest tens. And the really cool thing about rounding to the nearest tens is that things sometimes get simpler looking. So in fact, let's just have some fun. Let's write down just 5 numbers that each round to 360 when rounded to the nearest tens. All right, so how do you begin? Okay, we want to think of numbers that in some sense are actually close to 360. Now they could be a little bit less than 360. They could be a little bit greater than 360 as long as they're reasonably close to 360. So, for example, one possible answer, and there are lots of answers by the way, but one possible answer would be 300. Oops, look at that, it's a little sparkly. 355. Now 355, if you want to round that to the nearest tens, this actually is a little bit tricky. When you round to the nearest 10, what you have to do is we take a look at the unit spot and see what it is. If it's 5 or higher, then we're going to bump up the tens digit 1 up and make the new unit digit a 0. So in this case, since we see a 5 here, that means we're going to pop this up to 6, and so this is going to actually go to, it's going to round to, in fact, you know how we're going to do it like a round? It's going to be round, so it's going to be rounding to, well, it'd be rounding to 360. So that 5 is a really important number. If we see a digit of 5, that means we're going to actually round up to the next unit of tens. In this case, the next unit of 10 is 360. Okay, what about, let's take another example. Well, if you're bigger than 355, but smaller than 360, then you definitely round to 360. So for example, let's take a look at 357. Well, 357 or even 358, notice that those numbers are even closer to 360 than 355 was, and in fact, they're still also underneath it. So that rounds to 360 still, and this rounds to 360 still. And again, the reason is because that if I look at this unit digit, I see it's an 8, which is certainly bigger than 5, or 5, and so therefore, I round this up to the next nice thing that has a 0 in the unit spot, and I therefore pop this digit in the 10 spot up to the next one, so I see 360. Great. Now, what about if you get bigger than 360? Well, then you can actually still round to 360, but you can't get that much bigger than 360, right? You have to be under 365, because 365 is the cutoff point that then rounds up, like we saw earlier in the smaller example. So, as long as we stay under 365, we're good to go. So, for example, you could consider 361, or you could even consider 363. How would those round? Well, I look at this unit digit, I see a 1, so in the 1 spot I see a 1, which means that I'm actually really, really close to 360. I just a little bit overshot, so this rounds to 360. And similarly, 363, actually again, that's really close to 360, so this rounds again to 360 because this unit digit of 3 is less than 5. Okay, great. So there's a numerical way of generating, and there are lots of answers, and this is just 5 of them. That's all we have to do is to find 5. If you want to see another way of visualizing this, by the way, you can actually visualize them on a number line. I think it's kind of fun to do. When you visualize them on a number line, you can really see exactly what you and I were doing. So notice that here's 350, here is 360, and here is 370. And notice that the values we have, so 355, that's the one that's just on the edge. That's the moment we start to round up. Anything lower, we round down. And then 357 is located here, 358 is located here. Notice how close they are to 360, so they round up to 360, whereas 361, 363, those are each greater than 360, but actually less than 365, so they actually are clustered around, again, 360, so all these numbers round to 360. You want to find 5 numbers that round to 360? We've got them, 355, 357, 358, 361, 363. They all round to 360. Rounding to any number is great. It allows us to get a kind of a ballpark sense of roughly the size of a number without worrying about the exact value of the number. And that's often really handy if we just want to get a sense of how big something is in terms of just the general size and not worrying about the detailed things. So rounding is really, really fun. It gives us a wonderful estimate to a value, even of a big number. Have fun rounding all around you. Ooh, look at me, rounding around. And I'll see you soon.
All right, guys, we're going to work more with our AT words here. So the first word that I want to talk about is pat. Let's tap out the word pat. P-a-t. And let's build it. P-a-t. P-a-t. Whoa, pat. And let's go ahead and spell it away. P-A-T. Put it back. And let's work on another word with AT, and this word is hat. So like I said, all our words are going to have AT. So we can actually leave those right there. This word is hat. At. So all I need to do, let's put an H right there to make hat. At. And then we'll put that H away. And the next word we're going to practice is bat. So B-at. So we'll put the B right here. And we have B-at. Bat. Put that over there. That there. And now we're going to practice reading our word cards. So here's the first one on your spelling words. This word is pat, hat, bat, bat, mat, sat, cat, fat, and rat. Now let's do one more thing where we practice spelling our words. So the first word is pat. Let's tap it out. P-a-t. P-a-t. So go ahead and spell it. P-a-t. That's how we spell the word pat. Okay, go ahead and put the P back. And the next word is going to be hat. H-A-T. So we'll go ahead and put the H-A-T. Hat. And put our H back. And let's do one more AT word that we're spelling. And this word is bat. B-at. B-A-T. So B-A-T. Bat. We'll go ahead and put them away. And that was our practice for our spelling words this week.